Fortnite is a game about building. No, really, the game's tagline in its early days was, "The battle is building." Building was envisioned as a feature for Save the World, to add a level of tower defense to the game, inspired by Minecraft, rather than merely just being another zombie shooter. When it came to creating Battle Royale, Epic decided to keep building in the game, as it gave the gameplay a twist the competitors like PUBG lacked, and added an extra layer of strategy and defense. In the early days, building was used just as intended. As a defensive mechanism, players would create boxes, covered bridges, and walls to defend themselves. But some particularly good players like Myth and Ninja soon started to use building as an offensive technique rather than for defense, developing techniques like the triple ramp and the 90 to best their opponents. And this is where the skill gap started. Compounded by the later releases of Playground and Creative, many pro players spent dozens of hours honing their skills just building and editing every single day. And this created a huge skill gap issue where better players vastly outplayed newer players purely from building and editing. Despite Epic's best efforts, including the introduction of skill-based matchmaking in Chapter 2, this skill gap was only going to get worse. When Chapter 3 released, it brought a lot of new players into the game, and brought back a lot of the old players that had dropped off in previous years. But Epic knew that in order to keep these players, they would have to do something about the building problem. So when Season 2 rolled around, they turned off building for everyone for 10 days. And people loved it. Fortnite was getting praise from pros and casuals alike, and just a couple weeks into the season, building returned, and no builds became its own dedicated mode, Zero Build. Now I think there were two reasons to make no builds forced before it became its own mode. First, to introduce players to how it played and let them know it was worth their time. And second, so players could learn the various new movement mechanics introduced by the same update, like sprinting and mantling. Despite its initially positive reception, Zero Build no longer gets the admiration it once did. In fact, many see it as a simply inferior version of regular Battle Royale. But why? How could such a popular addition eventually be reduced to such mediocrity? Well, there are a few reasons. Firstly, lack of balancing. Zero Build removes every player's first line of defense, building, and replaces it with a simple rechargeable overshield. Players can have up to 250 health in total, which sounds great, until you realise that Fortnite's loot pools are all designed with building in mind. Even in the season Zero Build was introduced, Chapter 3 Season 2, the three most common weapons were the Nightmare Striker Burst Rifle, Drum Shotgun, and Combat SMG. Three spray-based weapons that all dealt 200 damage within a second. Later that season, the MK7 Assault Rifle was unvaulted. What's the MK7? Oh, only the most busted assault rifle of all time? Seems fair. Chapter 3 Season 3 scrapped most of these spray weapons but kept the Striker Burst Rifle, which was so generously also a red dot weapon, so a player could be hit from across the map with no means of defending themselves. Chapter 4 introduced the Havoc Pump Shotgun, an absolutely insane shotgun that just shredded through health bars with one tap, and this weapon stayed in for 2 seasons. Season 2 also introduced the Overclocked Pulse Rifle, a rifle so comedically speedy that it actually looks like the footage has been sped up. Thankfully this one was gone after a season. Chapter 4 Season 4 unvaulted the mythic variant of the MK7, and I don't think I need to tell you how busted this thing is. So basically, Zero Build players have consistently been at the mercy of overpowered weapons since its introduction. Ideally, Zero Build should have weapons nerfed by default, so it takes longer to spray down a player and therefore lets them more fairly react, or better yet, split loot pools. Epic Games seems allergic to the idea of separating their loot pools, as seen with the merging of casual and competitive loot pools when Ranked was introduced, and the fact that Zero Build has had a total of 2 exclusive items ever. The Porta Bunker was introduced in Chapter 3 Season 4 and later became a Zero Build exclusive, and Shockwave Grenades were also exclusive for a little while. Both are good additions for protection and mobility respectively, but there is just so much more that could be done. What about the Porta Fort? It would add an element of strategy where players can easily take high ground and get a little protection at the cost of exposing their location. Or even the Porta Fortress. Well, okay, maybe not that one. They could add the bush for bush campers, instead of just having that big bush bomb no one ever uses. The shield bubble would be a fantastic addition. It's an amazing utility item that creates a temporary bubble that no one can shoot in or out of, and it's been criminally underused in Fortnite's loopholes for years. The item-based launch pad was a pretty great addition as well, that was only used in one season and then vaulted forever, so yeah. Smoke grenades are one item that literally no one remembers, but I think they'd be a pretty great addition. Smoke cloud could help someone make a getaway or cause a distraction. You get the idea. There are a lot of underused items in Fortnite's sandbox that would make great zero build additions, or even regular playlist additions. Looking at you, Shield Bubble. But even if there were these items, there's still one major issue causing a large community of players to not really care about zero build, and that is the lack of competitive support. Competitive support, or lack thereof, as since its introduction there have been very few zero build focused tournaments, as Epic continues to pour all of its money into the big FNCS prize pool. What Fortnite needs is a seasonal, or bi-seasonal, zero build tournament to the level of FNCS. Whether it's just zero build FNCS or it has its own branding, this would incentivize a lot of pro players to try zero build instead of Battle Royale, and maybe create a stronger zero build community. Ranked zero build is also very lacking. In fact, solos straight up didn't exist for 2 seasons after the introduction of ranked, and even after that point it was only made available in certain times for specific regions, and trios and squads still doesn't exist. So if you want to go pro in zero build, duos is pretty much your only option. So yeah, zero build could be better, but by no means does that mean it's bad. In fact, the player counts show that people enjoy it. It's not an inherently bad mode. It's a fantastic idea with suboptimal execution, and it's strange that Epic doesn't seem to want to make changes to improve it, despite its popularity within the community. Of course, there may be things I missed, but those are the areas in which zero build is failing, and how I think Epic can improve on them in future seasons. And if they do all that, then maybe zero build could actually be perfect. Or they could just, you know, bring back the Tilted Town Rift Zone, because everyone loved that so much, right? That was a nightmare to record. Can you tell that I'm sick? Game ends me now.